Let's practice describing scatterplots. When you describe a scatterplot, we need to be sure to talk about form, direction, strength, and outliers. For this first example, the form of this graph refers to what's the general overall kind of a shape. In this case, definitely it's linear. And primarily what we're wanting you to look for is it linear? Is it not linear? Might it make sense to describe this using a line? The next one is the direction. For direction, we're looking at is there a positive or a negative direction or trend to the overall graph. In this case, as our x values increase, going from left to right, our y values are decreasing. So overall, the graph has a negative direction. For strength, what we're looking at is it weak, is it moderate, is it strong? And what you're trying to look at there is how close are the points to each other. In this case, they're all pretty close along that linear trend. So I would describe this as being strong. The last thing to be sure to look at is to see if there are any outliers. In this case, are there any outlying or unusual points on the scatter plot? I don't see any on this first one. Let's look at our second scatter plot. And we'll go through the same exercise. You might want to try it and come back to the video. Form here, it is approximately a linear form. Everything kind of goes straight across from left to right. Now it's definitely very weak, but we'll get to that secondary. So if we were just going to describe the form, is it linear, is it nonlinear? I would describe this as fairly linear. All right, for direction, is it positive? Is it negative? It doesn't really go positive. It doesn't really go negative. It just goes straight across here. So I would just say this is an indication of no association. Neither negative nor positive in its relationship. The strength of the direction, definitely weak. The strength of the association, rather, is definitely weak. They're all spread out. The points are not very close to each other along that linear direction. And then outliers, perhaps. Ones that I notice are this one that seems to be quite a bit lower than the rest of the data, and maybe this one up here. So those are points that we might want to investigate to see if they are outliers that behave differently from the rest of the data. And then let's do our last one here. Form here, definitely nonlinear. You can probably describe that. It looks like a parabola, doesn't it? All right, and then the direction, we can't really say that if we're talking about a nonlinear graph here. I mean, you could say, well, it's a parabola that opens up, but we're only going to be examining linear relationships in this class. Strength, I'd say this one's fairly strong. The points are really close to each other along that parabola line there. And then outliers, I don't see any on this graph that particularly look like they're different or unusual for the rest of the data points.